Hello friends, this is part 2 of webinar 12, and this is going to be a very brief part but very important, and that's why I want us to separate it into a separate segment. In this part I'm going to give you my conclusions, how COVID-19 catalyzed the Earth shift and continues catalyzing it, as well as my multidimensional futurist predictions that pertain to this conversation of ours. So you can write it down. This is very important. Actually, it's going to be bullet points. Now, this is a shift out of 3D physical reality and transition to lower to mid 4D reality intensifies as a result of COVID-19. Transition out of traditional capitalism and what we know as capitalism and out of dominant Western style democracy also intensifies. So a new hybrid form of social, political, and economic structures is emerging slowly but surely, and as I predicted before, it will be some form of hybrid between socialism and capitalism. In what form, in what manifestation, we will be talking about it later. I want you to first absorb this information that I'm giving you today, but it is a fascinating topic, and later I'm sure we will have more webinars on that. Now, shift of power and leadership from the west to the east also intensifies. Now, shift out of traditional city living intensifies. Again, to answer Seeker's question, back to nature, telecommuting to work, combining 3D, 4D, and 5D in one's reality more naturally, more organically, reclaiming original intent of the earthly physical 3D / spiritual 5D existence. This is something I explained and discussed at great lengths, in great detail in my series 2 of webinars, Forbidden History and Forgotten Origins. Also, in webinars of the first series, I discussed that in webinar 4, Period Date Predictions, and in the Putin Enigma as well, but especially series 2, the Forbidden History and Forgotten Origins. That was the original intent, and we lost it. Consciousness plunged on the planet dramatically, and only now we're recovering parts of that consciousness, part of that genetic memory, spiritual memory, soul memory. Now, I want to remind you, and this is, we're going to close this part of segment 2 with this, reminding you, we are transitioning into only lower 4D, not into 5D. 5D is a much higher consciousness level. We're nowhere near that. Some of us are, and a lot of you who are listening to this are on that level or transitioning into that 5D, that's coveted 5D for consciousness for planet Earth. 4D is just a crutch. It is a transitional reality. It is not the reality we should be striving for. Getting stuck in it for many, many years as some intent. Like, remember I said that what Bill Gates is doing, what this Eric Schmidt is hired to do, this robotic reality, that is not good. We need to grow. We need to continue growing to reach a 5D consciousness level. This should be the ultimate goal for humanity, because that was the intention for the human civilization, this and previous human civilizations and other civilizations, to combine 5D consciousness with 3D physical, this like nitty-gritty existence, fully incarnated, feel in touch and experience, in order to grow universal consciousness, in order to expansion of consciousness we needed this 3D experiment to feel in touch, to get feedback for consciousness. But consciousness level was unable to sustain the various hardships of 3D existence, and it really plunged, all described in Forbidden History webinars of mine. So 4D, all this internet and stuff, because humans lost the ability to communicate psychically and to move through time and space. When they had 5D consciousness, they could do that naturally. And then they lost the ability to do that. And because the lower consciousness plunged, they were in touch with their higher souls, their higher dimensions, and their higher selves. And then it was completely severed. Okay, so we are only now starting to recover bits and pieces. Some people still cannot accept it. I know I have people who love subscribing and reading my stuff or listening to my stuff as long as they talk about geopolitics. But the moment I start mentioning something esoteric, they leave me because they cannot handle reality above 3D. And geopolitics, by the way, is already 4D. That's lower to mid 4D reality. That's geopolitics. Thinking globally like this, that's already 4D. Okay, so it's a crutch though. We have a crutch of the internet. That's how I'm communicating with you guys. Via the internet, right? Via this like wonderful, beautiful crutch. If not for it, I'm very grateful, by the way. It's not something that comes easily to me because I feel like humans could do more, a lot more. Just think about it and communicate with anybody on the other side of the planet or anywhere in the cosmos for that matter. But no, we have to use this crutch because the majority of people, vast majority of people, completely lost ability to see beyond what their outer eyes are showing. Their inner eyes are shut. Their inner sensations, so there's no clairvoyance, no claircognizance for the majority of people. There are very, very few of us, like yours truly, who are completely in touch with these abilities. That's why people come to me for advice, and I share with you whatever I can publicly as well. Yeah, so our goal is to use this crutch, but continue developing past it. Yeah, that's our goal. Okay, and I'm going to conclude this episode. Very important part is my multidimensional predictions as it pertains to this situation. It's going to be bullet points. And I promise you there will be other pieces, webinars, maybe Patreon articles or some discussions where we will develop these points. And also webinars 13 and 14, there will be more. Okay, so multidimensional futurist predictions by Lada. The spiritual war between light and dark is intensifying as is typical of times of great shifts. Number 2, there is a thinning of veils between dimensions. So various dimensions from lower to higher are more interchangeable, more visible, more interactive, and more people are able to jump to higher dimensions. Some, of course, fall lower, but in my community, people only go up dimensionally. Power is shifting. New elites are born, new global elites, country elites, and all the elites are going away. Remember we discussed in webinar 11, Rothschilds, I believe, we discussed Rockefeller's Rothschilds. These are old elites. They're going away. What I said, do not put them on a pedestal, even if it's like a dark, devilish pedestal. Don't give them that much power. They are going away. There will be new elites, born and bred on different principles, more spiritual, more forward-looking than those elites, okay? Old ways of doing business and old ways of working are also going away. New ways are coming in, which will be lower 4D to mid 4D. Old ways of traveling and spending time are also going, and new ways of doing all this are coming. Old ways of financing, whether it's our business, education, or anything, are going. And how we look at money, how we perceive money, that is also going away. Okay, money will be perceived very differently eventually. Huge money will be lost in this whole transition, be it COVID-19 or this whole earth shift and inverted collapse and great rebalancing. Huge money will be lost by some, and huge money will be gained by some. Or huge wealth, we should say, because we will look at money differently. There's such a thing as Bitcoin, for example. There are such a thing as owning property or being such a valuable specialist. Eventually, that will be something like an advisor, for example, that people will come to you from all over the world, or specialist in something. You're very valuable as specialist. And so how you look at all this is going. People will begin looking at money, jobs, possessions in new ways. Cashless society, yes, that is coming, at least partially, and maybe not in all countries, maybe not right away. This is a big separate discussion. This we will be discussing at different time and different occasion. People ultimately may become more independent, more sovereign, more their own people. And conversely, at the very same time, people will find new communities of like-minded people to join, to be a part of. And they will be based on completely different principles. It is already happening. See, our community on Patreon, our community here, you participants who buy these webinars, my followers who are true followers, who really do want to hear and do understand what I'm talking about, who are higher dimensional souls, they crave this kind of interaction where they're taught and reminded, maybe sometimes you actually knew, you actually know, your soul knows, but you need to be reminded, because in this lifetime you experience in 3D an amnesia, and you have to be reminded who you really are, who you are as a higher dimensional being, as a being, as a soul that incarnated here, but lives cosmically, right? From other dimensions, from different dimensions. Maybe I just need to remind you that. So we have this fabulous community, one of the communities that are emerging all over the world. So the community that is not based on the fact that you were born in a specific country, in a specific community, belong to a specific family, or you have a specific status, or you work in a specific job, or you're rich, and so you're with other rich people. No. People of all walks of life, people from all life situations, countries, races, upbringings, genders, of course. We unite on different spiritual principles, on principles that are multidimensional and higher dimensional. The ties that are traditional, so they will be changing. Meantime, ties that are diminishing, maybe in some cases, or changing, the understanding will be changing. There will be more spiritual affinity between people who want to unite together. And spiritual could be, yes, I believe, I'm a patriot of my country, and I want my country to thrive and to do great, and I want to tell people the story of my country. That's also a spiritual principle of sorts, okay? It just pertains to this existence, 3D, 4D existence. But there are higher dimensional spiritual affinities as well. They're based on common understanding of how the world works, on common aspirations, based on common desires and maybe dreams even of how we can make the world better, or how we can make ourselves better. And more higher dimensional souls will be finding each other in this new reality, bonding into affinity groups. And a lot of that will be happening long distance. Yeah. Also, return and renewed interest in forbidden history and forgotten origins and roots. So some are bonding into these affinity groups, and they're also spiritual, higher dimensional affinity groups, soul to soul, where they remember their true roots. In Russia, this is a huge movement. As I was telling you previously, these villages and these traditionally dressed people who bring up their children in the Vedic tradition. Remember Forbidden History, Forgotten Origins webinars? All this about Vedism, true Vedism. Vedism, that is the root of our civilization, is discussed there. Also, micro-societies based on higher dimensional principles, they were developing, but there will be more of them developing. And that example from Russia I gave you, like programming villages as 4D community, or villages going back to your roots based on Vedic principles, that is even 5D community. Like there are eco villages. Our community is that micro society, guys. So congratulations, we are in a very good place, and we will continue continue working on this. We will continue developing our wonderful, beautiful, higher dimensional community. So that's all for part 2. And we're proceeding to part 3, which is going to be a brief Q&A.